This week's Explorer of the Week is D. Nandwani. D, thank you so much for supporting us and helping us to make these episodes. And to every one of our patrons out there, we really appreciate you. But this episode in particular dedicated to D. Nandwani. Now, if you too want to be Explorer of the Week, all you have to do is go over to patreon.com/aliens explored and pick one of the tiers that include Explorer of the Week and help support us in making these episodes. We love each and every one of our listeners. We love each and every one of our patrons. And we thank you so much for helping us to make this content. So this week's episode, Explorer of the Week, Dean Nandwani, we have you to thank for it. Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Many alien abduction cases include elements of what is known as the lost time or missing time phenomenon. This is where abductees suddenly realise that minutes, hours, sometimes even days have passed and they cannot account for them. But is it just a psychological condition, or is it further proof of alien presence here on Earth? Join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we delve into the lost time phenomenon.
Hello listeners and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly look at just about every facet of the unidentified flying object, unidentified aerial phenomena. We'll be delving into every little detail and I'll be giving my half-assed opinions on them. I'm one of your hosts, Neil Kelly.
And I'm your other host going full-arsed. Nice. I'm Stu Jackson, yet your other host.
Yes, I'll be making up theories and opinions on the fly as we go through.
Do you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because that's what a theory and an opinion is. You know, if an opinion is set in stone, it should be on the fly. Anyway.
Well, it's the first stage of the scientific process, isn't it? That you observe something, you maybe develop an opinion, or you then set up an experiment to see whether it is actually valid.
Yes, absolutely. Now, before we start, we've had someone contact us on Twitter. Julie contacted us on Twitter, asking about, do you remember when we talked about Dr. David Clarke, Neil?
That was quite recently, wasn't it?
It was for us, possibly less so for the listeners.
I mean, it wasn't 50 episodes ago. It was a couple of episodes.
No. That was a few episodes ago. And you mentioned a story about having a friend who was unemployed and so trained for a marathon.
Yes.
Julie wanted to know, were you referencing the movie Fat Boy Run? Run Fat Boy Run with Simon Pegg, or was it just inspired by?
Hi Julie. No, this was a real friend of mine who lost his job but spent time unemployed back in the days when you could get some benefits, training for the marathon. And he had this very complicated schedule. You go in his house and there'd be all these charts all over the wall about how many miles he'd run that day and what his target was for the next day and all this. It was all very intricate. I thought, you could never do this if you were holding down a job at the same time.
No. Have you seen the Simon Pegg film Run Fat Boy Run?
I haven't. No.
Oh, I recommend it. It's a good film. It's got
Run,
Tandy Newton in it as well. And
Run Fat Boy Run. It sounds a bit judgmental.
You would think so, and you would think like me, because I'm sensitive about weight issues, because I'm on the larger side because of health issues. But no, it's not. It's not how it sounds, how it comes across. It's a fun film. It
sounds like bullying. The title just sounds like bullying, doesn't it?
It does sound like it, but actually it's quite a fun film.
Oh, okay.
I recommend it. Heartily recommend it. So thanks, Julie. There you go. I said I'd ask, so I did.
Thanks, Julie. No, it's a true story, and yes, if you're planning on doing a marathon yourself, let us know how you get on.
Yeah, absolutely. I ate a marathon. They're called Snickers now. That joke doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's because my theory, my half-assed theory, I haven't tested it. I suppose I could write to the makers of it. I thought that marathon was too difficult for certain Europeans to pronounce. Certainly, right. Dutch and Germans struggle with a word like marathon because they roll their R and they don't use the th sound because they're more guttural. Right. So they say something like marathon.
Okay. I mean, the Greeks shouldn't have a problem with it.
Greeks wouldn't, no, but certainly Germans and Dutch would. Possibly French. I don't. Marathon. So
I'm making a little bit of a joke there.
Yeah. Or maybe it was called something else somewhere else, and they decided to be uniform about it. We've digressed already, haven't we? Quite a long way. We haven't even introduced our topic this week. Which actually, ironically, it's the lost time phenomenon, and here we are losing time.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon in of itself. It's one that you regularly hear on abduction stories. But is it something sort of prior to us starting to unearth abduction stories? Is it something you were aware of as part of the UFO culture?
I think I wasn't really aware of it as part of the culture, but there seem to be quite a lot of stories where someone says, where someone thought they'd only been a couple of hours. They thought they'd been abducted and they'd only been gone for a few hours, but they've been gone for a week. That sort of...
less so when you're talking days, although instantly one that springs to mind is the Travis Walton case.
Yes.
Which we discussed some time ago. But so many of them, you're missing a few hours. And indeed, you get some cases where someone will just see a light in the sky. They'll carry on with their journey and arrive at their destination several hours late. Sometimes only a short journey as well. And then under hypnosis later on, certain things are revealed. Now you've cast aspersions on hypnosis in the past, if I remember right.
I have, because when I was reading up on this today, just so I could talk vaguely sensibly, I was reminded very much of the recovered memory syndrome, which was instigated by. It was in the middle of a satanic panic, wasn't it? That
I don't know. I mean,
they took all these children away and persuaded them, or made them remember that they'd been abused.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I mean, obviously, satanic panic I'm familiar with, but I don't recall that.
This was in the States. I mean, I know we had a couple of big satanic panics in Britain, was it the Orkneys and in Cleveland, where children were taken away from their parents, separated, quite small children for quite a long time, because someone with a bee in their bonnet about Satanists had claimed that they were being sexually abused, and a similar thing happened in, I believe it was California, and children were persuaded that they'd been abused. So one even was, under hypnosis, remembered that he'd been flushed down a toilet and had travelled through the sewers into this sort of underground den where he'd then been sexually abused by these Satanists. So it's all a bit.
That sounds very bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about hypnosis, but I would think if you could get someone to remember something that was missing from their life, you could also fill that blank with something fictional, with the power of suggestion. I would have thought, speaking in my inexpert, half-assed opinion way.
Well, I've only been hypnotized once in my life, and that was just a very, very deep state of relaxation. Not asleep. I mean, you'd see these portrayals in the movies and TV shows about you're in a sleepwalking type state. Well, that certainly wasn't my experience of it.
You didn't go old cabinet of Dr. Caligari walking around with your arms out in front of you.
Absolutely not. Gosh, that's quite a reference. Do you want to explain to our listeners what that reference is, Neil?
The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a classic horror film. It was made in 1919 by Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau. It's a classic of Weimar cinema, right at the dawn of the Weimar period. And this Dr. Caligari turns up, and he's got a somnambulist. He's got this guy who's in a trance in a box at a sideshow, at a stand, a sideshow, and this somnambulist will answer your questions, and so one of the lads, just for a laugh, says, "When will I die?" And the somnambulist says, "Before dawn." And, and yeah, Dr. Caligari is sending this sleepwalker out to kidnap people or murder people.
Yeah, classic.
It is a classic
old film.
See it if you can. I've seen it twice. Always in shows that they quite often. This is obviously London, but they will put on a show in some exotic location. I saw it at the old operating theatre.
Right.
and usually with a
live there once live.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it really is an old operating theatre where basically you're sat on a steep flight of wooden steps, all in a sort of semicircle. The film is shown, and there will be musicians performing live music to it. It's very, always a great show. And Dr. Caligari is one of the favourites for that kind of thing, along with Metropolis and Nosferatu.
Oh, I can't even say it properly. Metropolis is one of my absolute favourites. Anyway,
must watch it again.
So yes, you've got this image of people being in almost a zombified state within hypnosis, which just wasn't my my take at all. Actually, I'm saying I've only been hypnotized once. I'll tell you what I have used. I haven't used it for quite some time now, but I have used. There's a famous, here in the UK, famous hypnotist called Paul McKenna. And he released a series of books and CDs for you to listen to, and it puts you in a sort of hypnotic state. And when I was going through a particularly tough time some while ago, about 8 years ago now, I started listening to a Build Your Confidence type CD.
Okay.
That puts you in a... I mean, he does say, don't listen to this while you're driving, try and be relaxed. You may remember it, you may not, it's all kind of... And so actually thinking about it, there's probably been quite a few times I've been hypnotized, but it is just a deep state of relaxation. It's not... It's not a... As Hollywood portrays it, a direct line to your subconscious. It's nothing like that. You couldn't be forced to do something you didn't want to do.
As entertaining as the idea is as a plot vehicle.
Exactly.
For a horror movie or a thriller, yeah.
But we've talked about doing a play, when the whole pandemic's over, haven't we? Based around people doing things under hypnosis.
A play called Hypnosis.
Yes. So that's something to look forward to when COVID's
when we get around
finished.
to it.
Yeah. So I don't know when you say about these kids and the satanic panic thing. I just think there's got to have been more going on. And under suggestion, when you're talking kids, I get it.
Emotions boil over a bit, don't they, when people talk about abusing children? But I mean, to get to the crux of what we're talking about here, or what's being suggested happens, or how this lost time occurs, is if you've been abducted and taken aboard an alien spacecraft and whisked away at somewhere approaching the speed of light, then time will slow down for you, won't it? For instance, if we were to travel to what's the nearest, Alpha Centauri or
Alpha Proxima?
Alpha Proxima, which is, what is it, a light year away?
Something like that, yeah.
If we were to travel to that region and back, say we're gone for 2 light years, you would come and you'd have to travel at the speed of light to do it. To do it in 2 years, you would come back to Earth and find that far more than 2 years had passed.
So you're thinking very much like Planet of the Apes style.
That is actual. I'm talking actual science here. I know, because I've seen it on telly. That if you travel at the speed of light, time slows down. Time is not fixed, you will. Have you ever read The Forever War?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Classic of science fiction from the 1960s, where these people are recruited to. It's a bit like Starship Troopers, and they're fighting these aliens, but they're having to go through wormholes and travel to distant reaches of space. And of course, every time they come back, when the guy comes back, his parents comes back for the first time. His parents are very, very elderly, and then he comes back again, and his parents are long gone. Comes back again, and actually, the human race has evolved to a different kind of level.
And there was the Twilight Zone episode that explored that as well. And we saw. Do you remember, Neil? We saw the Twilight Zone live on stage.
We did, yeah.
And they did a version of that where he went off into the future and came back, and his wife was an old woman, and
related to that, Stephen Hawking said that time travel is possible, but if you made a time machine, you'd be able to go back in time, but you wouldn't be able to go back beyond the time when the machine was made. Like if the machine was made in 2020, you wouldn't be able to go back to 2019. But where that would come in handy was if you did travel, if you did undergo interstellar travel at the speed of light and came back, you would have to orbit the Earth and go back in time so that the people who actually sent you on this mission and who were waiting for you to come back with your findings, they're still alive.
I mean, I feel we're getting a little bit off. But I get what you're saying, that for you the lost time thing is to do with time dilation. But I think something quite differently fundamentally about what the lost time phenomenon is.
Okay.
Because the fact that people are coming out with things that they weren't aware of under hypnosis, that suggests to me, rather than being sort of moved off somewhere else at speed, that people have had memories either wiped or suppressed in some way. That to me fits more with what we hear about the lost time phenomenon. But then that, I suppose, depends on whether you accept hypnosis as a way of retrieving memories.
Well, I've heard it said that if you wander into a room and then can't remember why you went into that room, it's because you've encountered an extraterrestrial who's wiped your memory so that he can escape.
Wasn't that a Doctor Who episode?
Was it?
The Silence, I think they were called. Every time you looked at them, you forgot.
Right.
That you'd seen them or something. Yeah.
I know some people like that. Very, very forgettable people.
Now, I can think of lots of reasons why extraterrestrials might wipe memory. I mean, for one thing, if what they're doing, and usually it's what is retrieved is quite traumatic events, then suppressing the memory of a traumatic event is.
But what we're really talking about here is someone who's lost time and often not been aware of it. That they think they've travelled a journey in their car for 4 hours. They've seen a bright light in the sky on the way, and then they arrive at their destination and they're told, "No, you set off 2 days ago. Where have you been?"
Yeah, and it's happened on a number of very famous cases as well. The first episode we ever did on Betty and Barney Hill featured a lost time phenomenon. Whitley Strieber, who we discussed. Remember when we watched Communion?
We did, yes.
That has the lost time phenomenon, and that
was the least of his worries.
The suppressed memories were affecting his personality, and they were coming out in quite negative ways. And it was again through hypnosis that he uncovered what he believed had happened to him. But there are so many cases, the Allagash 4, Villa Boas, so many like famous cases.
I'm also reading about an episode of The X-Files in March 1992 where Mulder and Scully were driving on a highway in Oregon and they lost 9 minutes. Mulder, of course, said that something had taken control of that time, and Scully disputed that because that's basically what they did. Scully was the scientist who was assigned to really keep Mulder's feet.
Scully was the skeptic.
Yes, Scully the skeptic.
It's kind of like us, Neil. I've never thought of that before. You're Scully.
Well, yeah, but sometimes in trying to debunk something, you can come up with an idea that's even crazier. Kind of think, wait a minute, did I just come out with that?
It does happen. But here's the crux of it. So, for me, the most terrifying, because I find the whole concept of alien abduction quite terrifying enough to start with. But when I really think about this whole lost time phenomenon, and that's like you say, someone goes on a journey, they're an hour late or 3 hours late to their destination, and that leads them then to dig away and pick away at it, and they discover as a result of that they've been the victims of alien abduction. What if it happened while you were asleep?
So I'm trying to think of all the permutations of this. It happens while you're asleep, assuming you live on your own, so there's no one there to notice that you've gone.
Or the person you're with is also asleep.
Yeah, but you then wake up, or you go to bed on Friday night and wake up thinking, oh, it's Saturday morning. And then you find out, actually, it's Monday morning, I've got to go to work.
No, you're thinking days again. The days thing is really incredibly rare. You're usually looking at a couple of hours. Now, how many times have you woken up in the morning and think, God, I feel tired today, but, I've had a good 8 hours sleep. Don't know why I should feel so tired. Oh, well, never mind, and just got on with your day and had extra cups of coffee.
Yeah.
Now, who's to say? Exactly. So who's to say that you haven't actually been awake for that period of time, but you're suffering from this lost time phenomenon, this suppressed memory?
Something that's happened to me a few times is I've been lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and then suddenly my wife will nudge me and say, turn over, you're snoring. And I'll say, but I'm awake. And she'll say, no, you're not. You're snoring. I'm thinking, that's the shittiest dream I've ever had. Imagine you have a dream and all you're dreaming is that you're lying in bed awake looking at the ceiling. Yeah. But that there's some sort of I must be in some sort of suggestible state that I think I'm there and present in the room, and I'm really not.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean suggestible. That's just a deep state of relaxation.
Yeah,
it's Hollywood that's put this idea in our minds that as we are going into a deep sleep, we are malleable and suggestible, and that's not really the case.
Hollywood again.
We can.
Hollywood just always puts these ideas in our heads, doesn't it?
It is possible that sometimes we are unable to discern between reality and imagination in those states, but that's, I think, a different thing to it being suggestible. Because if you were suggestible, then Janet saying to you, "You're snoring," would instantly put the memory in your mind about when you were snoring.
Yeah.
If you were suggestible. And that's why
I'd still deny it.
On principle. I mean, let's face it, in every couple, each of them always thinks only the other one snores.
No, I know I snore. I've woken myself up with a snore before. The other night, my cat will come in. He'll get on top of me, and he actually forced me. I mean, this is a 4 kilos of cat, but he actually forced me onto my back so he could lie between my legs. He likes that spot. But he was actually sort of working at me and turning me over. I had no choice.
Scaramanga had a birthday recently, didn't he?
He did, didn't he? Yes, he did. 12 years old on the 20th of March.
Oh, well, happy birthday to Scaramanga.
And let's hope there's many more to come.
Absolutely. So I find the idea of the suggestibility of people under hypnosis questionable to start with, because it is a deep state of relaxation, an almost sleep-like state. I get that, but we're not as suggestible as is suggested by. I mean, we are suggestible because Hollywood suggests it, and we take it on board, but. We're consciously suggestible, unconsciously less so.
When we're programmed to kill. We'll get a phone call and someone will say something like Vesuvius, and you'll go and get the gun that you never knew you had and go and...
Oh, the whole sleeper agent thing.
Yes. Telephone.
Yeah, that's all Hollywood. But yeah, this is... So this missing time, lost time phenomenon... It keeps reoccurring in so many independent UFO abduction reports, going way back to the 50s, probably beforehand.
It is mysterious, but I do suspect it has its roots more in psychology, that there's some phenomenon that perhaps hasn't been explored as much as it would be, rather than people actually going on a journey at light speed and losing time.
I honestly don't think it's a light speed thing. I think it's more about suppressed memories, because if it was a light speed thing, then how would they recall the memories that they didn't have previously? They wouldn't have memories.
Well, yeah, then under hypnosis, they would think, oh, yeah, I remember now, I was on that spaceship.
And that's the thing, they under hypnosis, they can remember the time that had been lost.
I'm still dubious about it. I do think you can suggest things to people. And if it's things that fit... I mean, I don't know how to explain someone setting off on a 2-hour drive, and as far as they're concerned, they've arrived within 2 hours, but then they're asked, "Where have you been?" You set off 6 hours ago.
Yeah,
where's that time gone?
That happens. It happens more than we perhaps realise, because so many people will just chalk that up to, well, that's a mystery, or. Yeah, he says he didn't stop, but he's lying, or...
Yeah.
People will not report it as a UFO phenomenon, or not report it full stop. So it makes me wonder how often that actually happens.
But, next time you're late for work, there's your go-to excuse.
That could be a positive that comes out of it. We never know. But what do you think, listeners? Is Neil right? Is it all to do with light speed and time travel? Is it more to do with suppressed memories? Is there something rational and terrestrial about the whole thing? Or is it, as I believe, that, memories are being suppressed by extraterrestrials? Let us know what you think by the usual means. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching Aliens Explored. Or if you join our Patreon program by going to patreon.com/Aliens Explored and picking any of the tiers to help support us, you get all kinds of rewards. But one of the things included in there is exclusive access to our Discord servers where you can chat with like-minded people and ourselves about any of the subjects we discuss here. There's been some lively discussions going on in there recently that I've been enjoying reading. So, so check out our Patreon as well. But I'll put a link in the description as always. Join us next time, though, when we're going to be talking about some reverse-engineered UFO technology, Neil.
Indeed.
I'm sticking my stake in the ground now because...
That's what you've decided to call it.
It is indeed. We are going to be discussing the cloaked B-1 bomber that was spotted at Dyess Air Force Base on Google Maps. So you don't want to miss that one next week. In the meantime, do keep watching your clocks very, very carefully. That's clocks with an L.
And remember that you actually did lose an hour. This for those listening in Britain and possibly the rest of Europe, you actually did lose an hour on Saturday night.
Of course, we are recording this, on Monday the 28th. Do you know what? That never occurred to me. That's basically what we've just encountered as a country. No, America, you had it a few weeks beforehand, but yes.
Well, it's in America. They've decided to stop changing the clocks twice a year. They're going to stick with daylight savings time, or
I don't know.
I don't know if it's on a state by state basis, because I can imagine, the nearer the equator you are, the less of a difference there is between the length of day in summer and winter. So if you're down in Florida, the days are pretty much the same length all year round. If you're up in New England, the days are short in winter, the nights are long, and vice versa in summer.
Yeah, really interesting. Anyway, yes, as well as that, keep watching the skies. We had a little digression.
We did have a digression. Sorry about that, especially sorry to Julie, if you're listening.
No, people like our digressions. Yeah. Turn it into drinking games and all sorts. Drink responsibly. But take care for now. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.